I'm going to show you how to get into flow state in an instant. This is brushwork. Friends and foes, welcome to Brushwork Podcast. My name is Stephanie Scott, and today I'm going to teach you about flow state and how to get into it. This episode is going to be an audio guide, a guide to put on when you are struggling to get into focus, get into flow state, and get into your artwork. But before we do that, we have to prepare, and we have to learn about flow state and about what it is. At this moment, I would love it if you would turn your phone on to silent. And if you are driving, don't try to do this exercise with us. Wait until you're into your creative space. Flow state is a state of mind that creates intense focus and an elasticity of time around your created intention. This is going to be something that is really easy to do if you've ever been an athlete. But if you haven't, don't worry, anyone can get into flow state. Flow state happens when you are taking in observation, when you are taking in an awareness of your space and an awareness of an intention. Having these things together will create a mindfulness around what you're doing in a way that is very powerful, very tense, and will be long-lasting in your memory. Some people say it takes 20 minutes to get in flow state. Some people say it takes a lot of work to get into flow state. I have trained as an athlete in my youth. I showed horses for a long time. I was an equestrian. And although I'm not an equestrian any longer, I've learned through that training how to turn on flow state in a moment's notice and whenever I needed it, to turn it on and get into a focused state that is conductive to what I needed it to do, to perform highly in front of other people, to make presentations, to have an intense awareness of what was going on in my surroundings. And I've used that in my artwork. This flow state is very powerful, and it has some side effects that you should be aware of before trying to get into it. Flow state makes it hard to talk. It makes it hard to have fluid speech. It makes it hard to speak very candidly, and you're going to see that as I go into this audio guide because I am in it right now. It also makes time feel elastic. Your time is going to feel like your seconds are really long, but the hours just evaporate. When you go into flow state, don't try to have too many things scheduled tightly around what you're doing. Because when you go into it creatively, you're going to start out with your intention, and then you're going to go into your work, and time will slip away. And getting flow state interrupted can be very startling and very abrupt. It's hard to leave the energy of the flow state. Whatever you do after your flow state moment will need to be calm and ease you into whatever's next. To set yourself up for a really great moment in flow, prepare your space for the action. So we're going to turn off the noise on any cell phones we've got. We're going to put on music that is nonverbal if that is what you're into, or you're going to allow yourself to sit with silence. This will be very, very powerful, and what you create will be very studied and very thoughtful. Not always good, but it will be intended, and that's what matters. When you go into flow state, you will have moments of action versus reaction. Of action you take, of intention that you take, of creating things that is very purposeful and very driven. And you will react differently to things. It won't be a reaction that is sudden and sparking. Instead, the reactions will be very monitored and calm and collected. It's very cool what can happen in flow state, and I try to get into it every single time I make art. Another side effect I notice in flow state is my memory of the flow is very heightened, and even now, me recording this podcast, I'm going to remember this moment for a long time. I'm going to remember the way the camera lens looks. I'm going to remember how I'm speaking, and I'm going to remember the time and the way that the space feels. It's very fun, and this awareness of focus is very powerful, and I hope you like it. Another thing I notice is that when I am in flow state, I feel very calm. and that is exciting. Being in calm, being in this slow breathing, being in a heart rate that is very steady and subtle can be a very powerful tool that if you are feeling anxious, getting into flow state can be very helpful into regaining your equilibrium. Getting into the flow state in a instantaneous kind of way takes practice. This moment of clarity, this moment of directness comes after you've learned the kinetic tools to get you into flow. Today's guide, when I'm going to walk you through it, will take about 10 minutes. But as you practice, you'll notice that getting into flow state can be as simple as picking up a paintbrush and feeling it. It can be as much as touching a doorknob, holding some water, blinking and feeling and looking at your art. As you practice flow state, as you practice this guide I've made for you, think about actions you take in your creative process that lead you towards flow, and shortening them and shortening them and shortening them until it only takes pressing record, it only takes picking up your color, it only takes thinking about, I'm going to make art today. Now, let's get you into flow and let's get you into focus. The first time you watch this, the first time you hear this, I want you to simply watch all the way through. I'm going to be giving you instructions. Some of them will be to repeat things. Some of them will be breathing exercises. Some of them you can ignore because they won't pertain to your craft. I'm an oil painter, so a lot of what I'm going to do is going to affect around oil paintings. When I ask for you to pick up a tool, when I ask for you to open something, do what is correct for your practice. The second time you listen to this audio guide, you're going to come back to this moment here, and I want you to do it with me. Go to your studio, unlock your door, put your things down, and then put on the audio guide and just listen to what I'm saying. And if needed, I can put this video, or this segment, just the audio guide, up as its own video later. Let me know if you would like that. For now, before we get into it, if you want to give me a little thumbs up or subscribe to the podcast, I would be really appreciative, as it's going to help me reach more artists. At the end of this, I'm not going to put on the exiting music. I'm just going to let it go into silence because I'm intending for you to be into flow state after this. Shall we begin? This exercise can be done as a visualization instead of physically done in your studio. Please go outside your studio, right outside the door. Today, as we enter the studio, we must leave behind what consumes us. Take a deep breath. Go ahead and touch the door handle, but don't open it yet. Repeat after me. I am leaving behind the world. As I go through this door, I'm entering a space of my creation. Creating is the only thing I have to do right now. I am leaving everything that is not creation outside of this door. Now take another deep breath. To get into flow, we must enter the headspace of an athlete. We must get into the headspace of those who have practiced our art before us. The creative practice begins when we touch the door of our studio space. If you don't have a door, touch the doorway of your space. As you cross the threshold of your studio space, that is when the flow begins. As you are about to walk through your doorway, notice how your body is standing with the open door. Notice your posture. Notice your pain. Notice what feels good. Take an inhale and taste what the air tastes like. Now cross your threshold. Your work begins when the door shuts behind you. By closing the door, you are telling the world and the universe that your time of creation is right now. Everything else can wait until you are done creating. You are safe in this time. Shut the door behind you and approach your artwork. Take a deep breath in through the nose and out through the mouth. Take another, a little bit slower. Acknowledge the work that has already been done to get here. Thank the person and the machines that built the tools you use and the prep you've already done in the past to get your canvas ready and the finished idea that awaits you in the future. If you work sitting, go ahead and sit at this point. If you work standing, stand in front of your art. Feel your body in this new position and get settled. We're going to be still for a moment. In this stillness, take some deep breaths. And as you do, look for the details in your artwork, blank canvas or not. Look at the texture of the canvas, at the ridges that are built up in your paint, at any pencil lines that might be peeking through, at the tension in the colors. Can you smell the materials? It's time to reach out. Choose a brush and pick it up. What color are the bristles? Are there any bits of paint stuck near the ferrule? How is the condition of the handle? Is the ferrule shiny or dulled from use? What does the weight of it feel like in your hands? Where does it balance on your finger? Now you're going to pull out a color. Slowly and mindfully untwist the cap or open it. Notice if the color is throwing oil. Notice if there is buildup along the rim. Notice if the tube is squeezed in a funny way. Notice the weight of the tube of color in your hand. Notice how the color is fluorescing in the studio light. Pour some of this paint on your palette. What is the texture like? Is it smooth? Is it grainy? Pick up your next color. Is the weight of this paint tube different than the last? How does the paint feel when leaving the tube? Continue to pick up and pour colors in this ritualistic way. take your time, place your colors distinctly on your palette. The attention you give your color directs the attention we're going to give our painting. After you've picked up and poured a couple of colors, pick up your palette knife and let's start mixing. In your mind, repeat after me. The only color wasted is the one left in the tube. The only color wasted is the one left in the tube. As you choose your color and the one you will mix into it, go slow. Diving into color changes with speed will come later today. So for now, take your time. Notice the streaks in the paint as two colors are mixed. Notice which of the two pigments you've chosen is dominant. Notice if the tone of the new color is what you were expecting. Do you need to add a little bit more? Do you need to cut the color? Notice if you mix your colors in a clockwise motion or counterclockwise. Try switching directions. Notice your posture again as you're mixing color. Are you leaning on one foot? Is your jaw clenched? Let's take another careful breath. As you continue to mix your colors until you have exactly what you need, think about what it is you want to paint today. Are we making progress on something that we started last week? Are you making something that is bright and colorful? Think about your intention as we flow into intention, as we flow into noticing. Let's now return to the art. With your palette and your brush, think about where you want to make your first mark. Think about the color you need and the brush you need. Very, very carefully, slower than you normally would. Let's make a first mark. Did it turn out well? Let's make another. As you begin painting here, as you begin creating, keep going with this slow, steady focus. And as things start to speed up, let them. Let's take another deep breath. At this point, you're probably in the flow state, whether you realize it or not. You are making your work. You are making your craft. Keep mixing the color and applying the paint. Think about movement. Think about texture. Think about everything you want to create this day. Flow comes from intention. It comes from intended practice and intended results. I want to give you a few tricks for getting into flow if you're having trouble. Today I've walked you through kinetic movements for getting into flow. Touching a door handle, feeling the weight of a paint tube in your hands. If you're not in your studio space and you need to get into flow, and you need it very quickly, I find that using water helps. You take your hands that are dry, and you're going to go into any kind of place with a sink. It can be noisy, it can be quiet. Whatever is happening can happen. You don't need perfect silence for flow. All you need is a drop of water. Turn the faucet on very, very low and put a single drop of water into your hands. I want you to feel the temperature of the water. I want you to notice how it changes the color of your skin. I want you to feel the weight and the pressure and the sensitivity of your fingers. Rub the water around your hand. Feel the sounds it makes. And in that moment, you've created flow. You've created hyper-focused attention on what is happening right now. I use this when I'm traveling and need to return to myself. I use this when I am at baseball games and am overwhelmed. I use this when I have a hard conversation ahead of me. Flow is something that you train. And if you feel like you're not getting it today, keep practicing. Like your artwork, like your paintings, like your drawings, these took time to develop. And it takes time to develop getting into flow as soon as you need it. But if you practice with the intention of getting into flow at a moment's notice, you'll get there much, much faster. I'm going to paint with you for a little bit. One more deep breath, yeah? Let's make some art.